People are like, who is Danielle Victor? And I'm like, bitch, it's Danny with 2 N's. Am I a fashion blogger? Maybe. Am I a storyteller? For sure. Am I a badass bitch? Absolutely. So if you're smart, you'll subscribe to my channel.
Welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to True Crime and Wine Wednesdays. Do you guys have your wine? Also, do you have your snacks? Because this will in fact not be a short video. And before I get into it and who I'm discussing, although I've kind of told you guys who I am about to do, I just want to state something really quickly. I had a couple comments on my last true crime video, the JonBenet Ramsey. If you haven't watched it yet, go ahead and go to my videos and catch up. I have done Vanessa Guillen, I have done Chris Watts, I have done Scott Peterson, and now I'm doing, oh wait, and then last week I did JonBenet Ramsey. So if you are new to my channel, and you want to watch me retell stories you've probably already heard 555 million times, go ahead and check out those videos. You can also go to my playlist. My videos are all divided into, different categories to make, it easier for you to enjoy and navigate my YouTube channel. So, if you would like to catch up on my past true crime videos because you are new, feel free to go to my playlist and go to True Crime / conspiracy theories / mysteries, whatever I named it as. But before I do, I had a couple comments on my last video that said, I'm trying to be these bootleg ass YouTube true crime people. First of all, I don't watch any other female or male or anyone's true crime videos. I literally watch movies and documentaries and Google 5,000 different reports, biographies, websites about the murders. I don't care if somebody told the story before me. Of course they have. True crime has been on YouTube since forever. So don't ever tell me that I'm a bootleg anybody, because I'm not a bootleg anybody. I'm myself. So that's that. Also, a couple people said, you need to learn how to get to the point, narrow these videos down to about 20 minutes, basically telling me to shut the f up. I had an attitude, so I snapped back because, I'm me. At the end of the day, I'm still a bitch. So if you're going to come to my page complaining about some shit I don't give a fuck you're complaining about, I'm going to tell you something really quick. So I said, no, if you have an issue with how long my videos are or how I tell my stories, go to somebody else's true crime, YouTube, and watch their videos. Because if their videos are 20 minutes or 30 minutes or however long, go watch theirs. You don't have to watch mine. I don't give a shit. I already know my true crime videos aren't getting that many views right now. I'm not doing it for views. I'm doing it because I'm learning how to figure out who's a serial killer when I'm walking my dog in public. Okay? And come to find out, there seems to be a lot. No bullshit. There's been this car. I've walked these the past 4 days, and this car, always a guy in the driver's seat and a creepy little looking bald-headed guy in the passenger seat, drives by super slow, just stops his car in the middle of the street, looks, and I'm like, yeah, okay, this is definitely something that could lead up to me being a true crime story. So I took pictures of his license plate today, and if I see him again tomorrow when I go for a walk, I'm probably gonna go say something to the cops, because I'm just getting that feeling like maybe this dude is into sex trafficking. He's literally picking out and hunting out new prey. I don't know, but couple days in a row seeing the same dudes, same two creepy dudes, lurking and looking and preying on whatever female is walking on the street. I'm like, something is definitely going on here. So besides the point, I'm gonna tell these stories how I want to tell these stories. And I don't want to miss any major details. I don't want to rush the stories, because these stories deserve, their time to be told, because these murders and these crimes happen to human beings, to real life people who had no idea that, you know, on whatever day they woke up, planned to do whatever they were going to do for the day, their lives would be coming to an end because someone decided to murder them. So if you like short videos, I can almost promise you my true crime videos will never be short, especially this one, because today we are talking about one of the most notorious, I'm sorry baby, one of the most notorious, well-known, talked about serial killers in America, Jeffrey motherfucking Dahmer, and his nickname was a Milwaukee Cannibal. So this story is very grotesque and gross, so I'm just gonna go ahead and put, you know, a disclaimer at the beginning of this video. I'm not gonna put crime scene photos in this because, I mean, I will put crime scene photos in here, but not the ones that had, like, Jeffrey Dahmer kept Polaroids of his victims, and that could be when they were drugged or dismembered or whatever position or state his victims were in. He has Polaroids. If you Google Jeffrey Dahmer Polaroids, you can see some of the grotesque and horrifying images that are on the internet. I will not be putting those images in my video, but I will be having, you know, the basic crime scene photos in the video. I will, in fact, have those. So
thoughts of violence intermingled with sex, and it just got worse and worse.
Jeffrey Dahmer was one of the most infamous serial killers of the 20th century. His crimes included luring victims into his home and strangling them before dismembering their bodies.
He related this was a person he really liked. He indicated that he had filleted his heart and kept it in the freezer, and he also kept his bicep. He indicated that he had eaten the thigh muscle of this subject, but it was so tough he could hardly chew it.
It made me feel like they were a permanent part of me.
Nobody was noticing that there were more than a dozen young men who were disappearing.
today we are going to talk about Jeffrey Dahmer, who was born on May 21st, 1960. And I had to Google if May 21st was still in the Taurus, you know, window, and it's not. He's a Gemini. Thank God y'all Geminis can have that serial killer, because that's Taurus. Don't want him. But he was born on May 21st, 1960. He is a Gemini, not a Taurus. And he is one of the most gnarly, fucked up, twisted serial killers to ever walk planet Earth. So let's get into his horrible, horrible, horrible crime spree that took over a decade before he was caught. So let's get into it, shall we? Jeffrey Dahmer was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Mind you, after this whole story and doing my research, I am never going to fucking Wisconsin. One of my roommates is from Wisconsin. I'm just like, skirt. I'm not saying everyone from, you know, Wisconsin's fucked up, but like, do you know anyone that's like Jeffrey Dahmer? I don't know. Milwaukee and Wisconsin, I'm never going. It's not on my bucket list of things to do, and if it had been, I'm absolutely still not going. I mean, maybe I would go and just take a picture in front of his house, but then I would feel like maybe I would be haunted for the rest of my life by his like Jeffrey Dahmer spirit. I don't know, but Milwaukee is definitely not on the to-do list. We're gonna go ahead and just take that completely off the to-do list. Anyone else? Any of you guys gonna go to, you know, Milwaukee after you watch this whole video? Probably not, right? Yeah, probably not. His father was a chemist, worked really hard, was barely at home, and his mother had mental problems. She was super depressed, always in bed. I'm not quite sure if she was a drug addict. I just watched the movie on Hulu called My Friend Dahmer, and it's scripted obviously, but it's based on true events. And actually I just watched a documentary on Dahmer right before this, and a lot of the details in this movie were a clear indication of what was discussed in his documentary. As a child, he was described as like happy, energetic, bubbly, high-spirited, and then at some age when he was a child, he had surgery for a double hernia, and they said that the surgery changed him and he became distant, standoffish, whatever. But I want to tell you guys that I actually at 6 months had surgery for a double hernia. And you know, maybe it did cause some issues for me, like maybe that's why I have issues in men, but I don't really see a double hernia surgery causing someone to become a cannibalist or, you know, a pathological serial killer. That's just from my own personal experience about having a double hernia. But what do I know, right? Maybe I am a f***ing psychopath. According to some of you, I am. Dahmer had a younger brother, and when his younger brother was born, he came completely withdrawn, had no friends. He began to have this interest in animals, like insects and other weird, you know, normal people. Like if there's a spider, an insect, or anything around me, I scream and I freak the fuck out. But he had some type of weird fascination with insects. No, baby, that's mommy's wine. And then he would pick up roadkill and examine the insides of the roadkill. And because his dad was a chemist and he thought his son was like, it's my napkin, sorry. His son was like, you know, gonna grow up and be a chemist too. He taught Jeffrey how to stick animals into acid to flesh out, you know, the flesh, dissolve it so he could get just the bones. So Jeffrey, for fun, would hang out with himself, pick up roadkill, dead animals, whatever, bring them back to his little lair, dissolve them in acid, and then collect the bones and examine the bones. So he had a weird thing for dead shit. So if that's not a sign that your kid has problems, I don't know what is.
I think it was around age 14 or 15, started having obsessive thoughts of violence. I didn't know how to tell anyone about it, so I didn't. I just kept it all inside.
It's amazing how much a human being can hide from another human being.
But clearly at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and say his mom probably was just so engulfed in her own mental problems. His dad was probably too busy working. And so basically this kid was just alone. And, you know, I'm alone a lot too, and there's a lot of people that are alone, but a lot of people that are alone don't turn to, you know, dead animals and roadkill and acid so we can study the inside and watch insides melt of a dead body for fun or for entertainment. So I'm not going to go ahead and blame his loneliness on why the f he became one of the world's most notorious serial killers. Now, later on, people will say that maybe his parents' divorce had something to do with it, or maybe the fact that in high school he really had no friends, or he got made fun of and he got picked on. And, you know, in high school, he began to have a drinking problem at 7 a.m. when, you know, you're taking the school bus to class and you go to school. You would think like you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Mom just made you some pancakes. You ate some fucking strawberries and blueberries. Mom just happened to make you a fucking vegan smoothie, and you get to school and you're ready to study history class or go to chemistry or take gymnasium. But Jeffrey Dahmer was rolling in after drinking 2 beers for breakfast and hiding beers and hard liquor in his jacket, and was drunk before school started, drank during you know, school time, drank after school. So he became like a severe alcoholic in high school. So a lot of people might say that his delusions and his weird, you know, fantasies and whatever could have been another reason why he became as fucked up as he was. I don't think liquor had anything to do with him being a serial killer. I don't know if he was born a serial killer. I don't know if environmental bullshit you know, turned him into a serial killer. I know for a fact that there's people that walk this earth that are very evil. You know, they are the devil itself. And he is one of those people. And we don't know him. He's dead now. We'll get into his murder. He was murdered, but we'll get into his murder at the end of this video. So that's why you gotta stay tuned. and watch the whole thing, because if you don't, like, you won't know how he got murdered, unless of course you know everything about Jeffrey Dahmer already, and then it's like, alright, you already know he got murdered, but whatever, that's besides the point. Just watch till the end. Please, can you just watch to the end? I put a lot of work into these videos, okay? Just watch till the end. After he got arrested, he did a lot of interviews, and he told, you know, one of the people that interviewed him that he got into necrophilia at around the age of 14. And for anyone who doesn't know what necrophilia is, it's basically when you have sex with a dead corpse or you're sexually aroused by dead corpses. So he would find himself collecting, like, you know, dead dogs or, you know, dead raccoons or dead possums on the side of the road for roadkill, and he'd dissolve, you know, their flesh in acid and get their bones, and he realized that he was getting sexually aroused by this whole process of, you know, collecting something that was dead, examining the insides, taking the bones. All of that gave him a boner. But doctors want to say it's because his double hernia. No. That's because he's f***ed and he's a psychopath, and Lord knows 1,000 times this dude could have gotten caught and he didn't, which is more proof that it's like the devil walking on earth, because he just got away with his sins way too many times. But besides the point, Jeffrey Dahmer is, of course, you know, the world's most notorious, one of the world's most notorious serial killers, and he took the lives of 17 victims. So he claims. He could have taken more at this point. It's weird because I was doing research online and I was like reading all these articles, and it seems to be more than 17 victims, but every single article just said 17 victims, but when you add them all up, it seems like more than 17. So at the end of this video, if you watch from beginning to end, let me know if I did in fact say 17 victims or I said more, because I feel like with, you know, what I took from everything I watched, there's more than 17 victims, but maybe I just miscalculated in my head. I don't know. But he took the lives of 17 victims, mostly African American men. 10 out of the 17 victims were black. He would find his victims at gay bars, bus stops, malls. He would just hunt what he considered to be the best looking guy where he was at.
When it was revealed that most of the victims were black or homosexual, people in Milwaukee were incensed. Many felt that was why he went after them and why the police didn't seem to care when their families reported them missing.
10 of your 17 victims were black. Were they racially motivated?
It was
crimes?
not racially motivated. It was not sexual preference. It was just to find an obsession with the best looking young man I could find.
And, you know, he did engage in sexual activities with people without murdering them or killing them. He did have like a fascination with drugging people when he first started. So even before he died, when he did interviews, he never came out to himself that he was gay. And I think maybe part of the problem was that he was in disbelief that he was actually, like, you know, a homosexual.
It was not sexual preference. It was just to find an obsession with the best looking young man I could find.
While you just heard him say that his sexual preference had nothing to do with the killings, he has not come to terms with his homosexuality.
When he was younger, he did recall making out with other boys and, you know, developing these like fantasies about men and, you know, being attracted to men, but never fully coming out of the closet. So partially, I think maybe some of his anger and his delusions was for the fact that he didn't understand or accept the fact that he was actually gay. And that's why when he killed his victims, he had to be in this like sense of control and domination, because that's how he felt powerful, because maybe he felt, you know, less powerful knowing that another man could have him, because he did, you know, receive oral sex and he gave oral sex, but he never received the back end of things. He only gave it. So he was basically a giver, not a receiver in, you know, his homosexual relationships. And I think that's another indication that maybe he was just in denial about the whole situation, and maybe that denial of him being gay and having this attraction for the opposite sex made him angry and, you know, isolated from the rest of the world. And think about it, back in the day, like when he started, you know, killing and was in high school, being gay wasn't as accepted as it is right now in 2020. So a lot of that probably had to do with the fact that he wasn't comfortable being who he was.
Killing wasn't the objective. I just wanted to have the person under my complete control, not having to consider their wishes, being able to keep them there as long as I wanted. It's not easy to say that, but that's what the motive was.
Where did that need for control come from? Do you have any idea?
I don't know, maybe I felt I had no control as a child or young adult, and that got mixed in with my sexuality, and I ended up doing what I did was my way of feeling in complete control, at least for that situation, creating my own little world where I had the final say, finding the best looking guy that I could, and having total mastery over him for as long as I wanted. Lust played a big part of it, controlling lust. That was the motive, right there.
So Jeffrey Dahmer's MO was, you know, finding an attractive gay man at a mall, a bus stop, a gay bar, and he would promise them either sex or money. He would lure them back to wherever he was staying, lace their drinks with some type of drug, and when they were passed out, he would rape them. Then when they were coming to consciousness, he would strangle them, dismember them, and oftentimes he would take pictures of his process.
I'd go to the nightclubs, drink, watch the striptease shows, and if I didn't meet anyone at the bars, I'd go to the bath clubs and meet someone there, offer them money, and we'd go back to the apartment, have a few drinks. I'd have the sleeping pill mixture already prepared. Person would drink it, fall asleep, and that's when they would be strangled.
After he killed his victims, usually before he dismembered them, he would have sex with the dead dead body one more time. So gross. Oftentimes when the murder was complete and his necrophilia or pre-death sex was over, he would then dismember their bodies. Oftentimes he would keep their skulls, their genitalia, sometimes their hands. Sometimes he would keep thighs. He would cut out hearts and stick the hearts in the freezer, the thigh meat in the freezer, their genitalia in the fridge or the freezer. Oftentimes he would keep skulls in the fridge. Sometimes he would take the skulls and he would paint them and he would leave them on display.
I had these obsessive desires and thoughts wanting to control them, to, I don't know how to put it, possess them permanently.
And that's why you killed them?
Right, right. Not because I was angry with them, not because I hated them, but because I wanted to keep them with me. And as my obsession grew, I was saving body parts such as skulls and skeletons.
Why did you photograph them?
It was my way of remembering their appearance, their physical beauty. I also wanted to keep something. If I couldn't keep them there with me whole, at least I felt that I could keep their skeletons. And I even went so far as planning on setting up an altar with the 10 different skulls and skeletons.
And what was the purpose of the altar going to be?
As a sort of memorial, a point where I could, I don't know, it's so bizarre and strange, it's hard to describe. A place where I could collect my thoughts, and feed my obsession.
There's actually one time in an interview he said that he took one of the skulls to his job. He worked at a chocolate factory, and he had the skull on display at the job.
He became so warped by his evil impulses that he even took a victim's head with him to work at the Ambrosia chocolate factory.
I kept the mummified head and skull of one of the victims in a carrying case in my locker at work.
Were you almost flaunting it?
Yes, but that's how strong the compulsion was. That's how bizarre the desire was. I wanted to keep something of the person with me.
And how no one noticed any of this strange, weird behavior is beyond me, but that's besides the point. Maybe back in the day, like in the 80s and early 90s, like things were different. But I imagine if I was working in a chocolate factory and some dude brought in a skull that was painted, I'd be like, I'm gonna go ahead and call the cops. I'm not gonna tell you I'm calling the cops, but I'm not gonna call the cops. I'm gonna tell him this motherfucker at my job has a skull. He painted it whatever color he was, dibbly daddling in, after he went to Home Depot and bought some paint. And I'm gonna need you to come down here because this motherfucker is probably gonna kill me too, and then paint my skull. And then people are gonna be like, why didn't homeboy show up for work? And it's like, oh, because my coworker killed me and no one caught him because everyone has their head up their ass. But anyways, he would keep their genitalia or their skull, and he also took pictures so he could relive the moments after the moment had gone. And in an interview, he said that his obsession and his compulsion to kill was because he wanted his victims to stay with him. So a lot of these victims, and I think probably because his first victim ever wanted to leave, and his first murder was actually not planned. It was very compulsive, and it was because the guy was leaving. And I think when he picked up these men and he found them super attractive and had these sexual moments with them, he was so petrified that they would leave, like his first victim, that he convinced himself in his mind that if he kept their skulls or their hands or their genitalia, ate their thighs or ate their heart, that a piece of them would always be with him. He's just he's cooked, twerped, snapped, lunatic. It's obviously not okay in the head, but that was his mindset. If I cut out their heart and stick it in the freezer and eat it later, then this person that I killed will forever be with me. They never left. They can never leave me now because a part of them is now a part of me. That was his f***ed up mentality. He was sick. So sick. In the movie My Friend Dahmer, it showed basically how he was in high school, and then I watched a documentary. And basically he got beat up. He had a very hard time in high school. People made fun of him. He was isolated. And then a couple people that were friends with him used him for entertainment because he used to fake seizures and make loud noises, and they thought it was funny. And so they used him for their own weird, twisted entertainment. They described one time, even in this documentary, which was also shown in the movie, that they went fishing. He caught some type of fish, but it was one of those instances where you catch the fish and then you put it back in the water and let the fish live its fishy life. But he took a knife, ripped the fish open, and when his friend, one of the guys, asked, why did you do that? He was like, I just wanted to know what his insides look like. So in high school, he was definitely showing behavior of someone that was on the path of, being a serial killer, because now it says that a sign of a serial killer are people that can harm animals. And so if you know anyone that is harming animals right now or has in their past, I would be very wary of them. I would, cut them off from all communication, maybe move towns, get as far away as possible from them, because they're probably a future serial killer if they haven't already killed already. Because once they get bored with cutting open animals, they're going to turn to the next best option, which is human beings. So if you know anyone who gets pleasure out of hurting a poor innocent animal, call the cops. Don't be friends with them. Don't piss them off. But they definitely need, pay attention. Pay attention to them. So Dahmer's first victim came right after his high school graduation. He was 18. His parents had split at this point. His mom took off with the younger brother. The dad was busy working, and Dahmer spent an entire summer alone in the family house by himself. How a family allows that to happen with one of their children is beyond me. It's very weird, it's very bizarre, but it is what it is. So he always had this fantasy of picking up a shirtless hitchhiker and having his way with him. And one day he's driving down his road to go home, and his fantasy is now, you know, about to happen because he sees this hitchhiker. His name is Stephen Hicks. So he offers Stephen a ride. He asks him if he still wants to party. They go back to Dahmer's. They drink a couple of beers, and at some point Stephen's like, all right, well, I'm gonna head out. And Dahmer's like, no, don't leave. And he's like, no, dude, like, I'm leaving. I'm getting the fuck out of here. Thanks for the beers. Thanks for, like, you know, giving me a ride, but I'm out. So Dahmer takes a dumbbell, a weight that he had, and he hits him in the head with it and starts hitting him in the head with it. And his intention wasn't to kill him, but when he was unconscious because he was scared and he was panicking, he used the dumbbell to strangle Stephen Hicks to death. After he was dead, he undressed the body completely naked and then masturbated on the body. He then stuck Stephen's body into garbage bags. He dismembered the body, stuck it into garbage bags, got into his car and was driving, and he actually got pulled over for a traffic stop violation. And the cops like telling him what he did wrong, and then, you know, he takes his flashlight, he's looking in the back seat of his car, he's like, what are those trash bags? And he's like, oh, it's just trash. I was on my way to throw them out, but then you stopped me. And the cop was like, all right, whatever, and let him go with the traffic violation. Had the cop been a little bit more curious as to what was actually in the trash bags, and why are you driving trash bags to a dump site? Why wouldn't you just put them where they normally get disposed? Because every house has trash day. So the cop obviously was half-assing his job and lets Jeffrey Dahmer go. Had he done, you know, some actual police work and been a little bit curious as to why he had several trash bags in the backseat of his car, maybe, just maybe, 16 more victims would still be alive. But Jeffrey Dahmer went on his happy little way, went back to his place, put Stephen's body parts in acid so they would dissolve. He then took the bones, smashed them into a million pieces, went into the woods, did a 360 spin in the woods with the bones, and spread the bone ash all around the woods like a psychopath. And for weeks he was reading newspapers. He was trying to see if there was any news or any article about this missing person. Is he murdered? And there was nothing. So that was when Jeffrey Dahmer realized, wow, I just killed someone. I murdered him in a terrible, horrible manner. Not a single person is looking for him, and I got away with it. No one is ever going to put this murder on me. That thought is in the back of his mind.
After the first killing was not planned. I was coming back from the shopping mall back in '78. I had fantasies about picking up a hitchhiker and taking him back to the house and having complete control and dominance over him.
The hitchhiker's name was Stephen Hicks. He was just 18. Jeffrey Dahmer took him to his parents' house. There he strangled him with a barbell.
But it will be 9 years until he commits another murder. So at this point, he's at Ohio State University. He drops out. His drinking problem has exceeded through the roof. He's drinking all the time, blacking out all the time. So his dad suggests that he goes to the Army. He does what his dad says. He enrolls and enlists in the Army. He gets stations in Germany. People actually came forward and said that they were suspicious that Dahmer drugged them and raped them while they were on base, but he never got in trouble for that. He actually got discharged from the Army because they thought he wasn't fit due to his drinking, and probably because he had so many, you know, rape allegations against him, or people that were a little iffy about what he was doing and like hanging out with him and like waking up and not remembering the night before. So he actually got discharged from the Army.
Jeffrey Dahmer joined the Army and was sent to Germany. He was eventually discharged for a drinking problem and returned to Ohio. 9 years after Stephen Hicks' murder, the killing began again.
What happened to you in the 9 years in between that you were able to stop?
that you were able to control yourself?
It just wasn't an opportunity to fully express what I wanted to do. There was just not the physical opportunity to do it then.
When he got discharged from the Army, he came home and his drinking just exceeded and just continued to be so bad. So a year after he got back, he actually got arrested for indecent exposure. And after he got arrested, his dad like couldn't deal with him anymore. So he's like, you have to go live with your grandmother. So he packed his shit. He went to go live with his grandmother. His grandmother was clearly delusional because many murders occurred in his grandmother's cellar, but that's besides the point. Nanny was not paying attention to her grandson. But after that, he got arrested again in 1986 because two little boys came forward and said that he masturbated in front of them. And he actually got arrested, and he only got 1 year probation for that. And the weird twisted part of it is one of his victims will actually be the brother of one of the two kids that got him arrested for masturbating in front of him. That's so weird how full circle life can be.
Was arrested for indecent exposure, disorderly conduct, and fondling a 13-year-old boy. Tragically, one of his murder victims would be that boy's brother.
At this point, Jeffrey's going to church with his grandmother. He's like reading the Bible. He's trying to be like a better person because he knows like deep down inside he's this sick psychopathic killer who's already gotten away with murder. And he claims that one day he was at the library. This guy approached him, threw a crumbled piece of paper at his feet. He opened the crumbled piece of paper and it said, "Hey, if you want a blowjob, meet me in the men's room right now." And he said that note triggered all his homosexuality again, his anger, his compulsion to kill. He never met that guy at the bathroom. He never got a blowjob, but he said that particular note triggered him into what would then become years and years of massive killing sprees. So his second victim was Stephen Tuomi, and I'm just going to go ahead and apologize in advance. I'm probably going to fuck up how to say every single person's name because you guys know I'm really bad at saying names, but I think it's Tuomi. He met him in a bar in November 1987, a gay bar. They hit it off. They got a hotel room. They were drinking in the hotel room. He planned on drugging him, raping him, murdering him, and then doing whatever he wanted with the body. However, he claims that he woke up the next morning next to the victim who was already dead, and he beat him to death. There was bruises everywhere. It looked like he had a broken rib. And because of his drinking problem and the fact that he blacked out so often, he doesn't even remember committing the murder. So he goes down the street to some type of store. He buys a suitcase. He comes back to the hotel. He stuffs the body into the suitcase. The suitcase is super heavy. He actually gets the bellboy of the hotel to help him with his bag. And the bellboy actually joked and was like, "Damn, man, what, do you have a body in here?" And Dahmer actually responded, "Yes, I do." So seriously, kind of laughed after, but if you watch interviews with Dahmer, if he laughed, I would be like, this motherfucker really has a body in there. Like, he was creepy. Everything about him was creepy. And it's so weird because some documentaries describe him as being a good-looking man. No, he wasn't. He was a creepy, like, if someone describes a serial killer, what I think of is Jeffrey Dahmer. The serial killer glasses, the shaggy hair, the one who's in the back, like, looks like he's plotting, like, what he's gonna do and how he's gonna do it. When I think of serial killers, I think of Jeffrey Dahmer. So when people are describing him as a good-looking man and how he had no trouble picking up men and or women if he was into women, I'm like, skirt, good-looking where, bro? Maybe it was when he was younger, I don't know, but every picture I've seen of this dude, he looks like a serial killer. Oh, and guess what? He was a serial killer. An ugly ass serial killer. Good looking? Nowhere. Because he wasn't. After he gets this suitcase in the car, he heads back to his grandmother's house. He has some, he masturbates over the dead body. Then he dismembers it. He keeps the skull. This now becomes his like regular routine of like what he's going to do with his bodies.
And I started, when I moved to Milwaukee in '81, I started reading pornography, going to the bookstores. Eventually that led to frequenting the gay bars. And then one time I brought this young man back to the hotel room, the Ambassador Hotel. Was just planning on drugging him and spending the night with him. Had no intention of hurting him. When I woke up in the morning, he had a broken rib here, was heavily bruised. Apparently I had beaten him to death with my fists.
And you have no memory
I
of it?
have no memory of it. But that's what started the whole spree all over again.
Dahmer says he snuck the corpse of his victim, Stephen Tuomi, out of his hotel room in a suitcase. Then he took it to his grandmother's house, where he cut up the body and put it in plastic garbage bags.
How Nana didn't smell any weird smells or notice her grandson doing some weird ass coming home at late hours with random suitcases is beyond me. Or maybe she did notice and just didn't give a I don't know. I'd be paying attention to that type of shit though. Like if my roommates started acting like that, I'd be like, oh god, I'm living with a serial killer. Jeffrey Dahmer's third victim was James Doxtator. Probably saying that wrong. Again, I apologize. He was only 14 years old. He was a native male prostitute. How one turns to prostitution at the age of 14 is already sad in itself, but he used to hang outside of gay bars to try to pick up clientele, which is how Jeffrey Dahmer lured him back into coming to his apartment with money and sex and whatever else he could probably convince this guy to come back to his apartment for. But he actually went to his grandmother's basement cellar. There he was again strangled and killed. His body was dissolved in acid. He took the bones and smashed them and got rid of them, much like he did with Stephen Hicks, his first victim, but he did keep his skull to admire later. Fourth victim was Richard Guerrero. He was 24 years old. Richard Guerrero was killed on March 24th, 1988. He met Dahmer outside of a gay bar. He brought him back again to his grandmother's house. They performed oral sex on one another after Dahmer gave him a laced drink with drugs, and once he was out, he strangled him to death. He had sex with the corpse, and then he dismembered the body and put the body parts in his grandmother's garage. Now at this point, I'm just thinking, this dude has killed 3 people at his grandmother's house. The smell of a decomposing body has to be horrible, and how does his grandmother not smell any of this? Like, are you that delusional? Like, yeah, you could lose your hearing, you could lose your eyesight, you could lose a lot of things when you get older, but you can't lose your sense of smell unless you can. I don't know if you can. Can you lose your sense of smell, like, the older you get? Like, your hearing gets bad and so does, you know, smelling roses when you get older? Somebody comment below. Maybe I'm not accurate there, but I'm thinking, like, how does she not smell decomposing bodies in her garage? Dahmer's 5th victim remains nameless to this day. I literally looked at so many articles. I tried to find the name. He was a minor. He was only 13 years old. He actually escaped Dahmer's, you know, killing threshold, because at this point he no longer lives at Nana's house. He has his own apartment, which will then become one of the biggest crime scenes in, you know, American history. But somehow he escapes. This little boy escapes from Dahmer's killer grasp. He approaches police. He tells police, you know, this happened to me. This guy was going to kill me. I swear to God. Instead of cops doing a thorough investigation, they only arrest Dahmer for molestation of a minor and taking pornographic photos of a minor, and he got probation. He didn't even get locked up for that. He got probation, y'all. Probation. Again, this is another instance where Jeffrey Dahmer could have been stopped by police had police done a better job. And I don't know if, you know, they didn't take molestation back in the day seriously, but if a little kid is telling me this grown-ass man molested him and took nude photos of him, I'm gonna go ahead and assume this man is probably up to no good and he should have gotten a jail sentence. I think they take probably child molestation more seriously now in 2020. I guess back in the day it was like not really that big of a crime, because clearly Jeffrey Dahmer got probation and went right back on the streets and back to his killing spree. I'm not sure if he got locked up for a little bit, but if he did, he somehow tricked, you know, the panel into just giving him probation for work, and he swears he's a changed person and he's never gonna do anything like that again. Meanwhile, he's itching to get the fuck out so he can, you know, go back to a gay bar and find someone he can kill and, you know, dissect like he's in science class. Next victim is Anthony Sears. He was killed on March 25th, 1998, and they met at a gay bar. Dahmer lured him back to his place. They actually engaged in sexual activity before Dahmer drugged him, but when he was drugged, he strangled him and killed him like he did every other victim. He had sex with the dead corpse before he dismembered it, and he actually kept his genitalia as trophies, and he kept the skull and he painted it gray. He disposed of the rest of the body like he did his other previous victims. Raymond Smith was his next victim. He was 33 years old. He was killed on May 20th, 1990. He was a male prostitute. Dahmer acted like an interested client, lured him back to his place where they engaged in some oral sex before Dahmer gave him a drink with a sleeping pill laced in it. When he was about to lose consciousness and couldn't resist, he strangled him to death. Before he dismembered his body, he placed his body in various sexual different positions and took Polaroid pictures of his body. He then dismembered him. He boiled his body in acid so the flesh would, flush out, and he kept the bones. He put the bones around his house like ornaments. And then he painted his skull gray, just like he did with the previous skull, and then placed the skull right next to Sears's skull in the refrigerator, like a sick f***. I wonder if he had any like regular food in there, or if it was just like skulls and their body parts. Ugh, it's so disgusting to me and so disturbing. Dahmer's next victim was Eddie Smith. He was 27 years old. He was killed on May 24th, 1990. Again, like everybody else, he was lured back to Dahmer's place. He was then drugged, strangled, and then dismembered. I read that Dahmer had a little bit of trouble with Eddie's body. He tried to get moisture out of the bones and the leftover parts, but he couldn't get rid of the moisture, so he had to throw it away. He had to throw those body parts away. He then was trying to dry out Eddie's skull in his oven, and the skull exploded in his oven, and he recalls being extremely upset that he had no remains left from that body to keep as a trophy ornament or whatever you want to call it that he kept. Dahmer's next victim was Ernest Miller. He was 22 years old. He died on September 3rd, 1990. He lured Ernest back to his place by offering him $50 to pose nude for pictures. He went thinking that it was going to be a $50 payday. He ran out of sleeping pills at this point, so he actually slit Ernest's neck. And once he was dead, he put his body into acid so it would dissolve. He kept the skull, painted it, and left it on display. He also cut out Ernest's biceps and put him in the freezer, which he would have later consumed for dinner or lunch or a snack, but he did keep his biceps in the freezer and consume them later. I just can't. I'm gonna say this though. I don't know how times were back in the day. I don't know what people did for money, but a 22-year-old boy, accepting someone's offer for $50 to, pose nude for pictures because he's desperate for money or whatever, seems to not be normal. And like the 14-year-old native prostitute boy who was outside of gay bars looking for clientele, at some point I get really sad thinking of all these people's stories. Like, so many of them were prostitutes or escorts or people looking for easy cash or sex with strangers, and you wonder what their lives were like for them to be in these positions that are so dangerous. Because even right now, even walking your dog down the street is dangerous. It could be so dangerous. And I'm just, in my mind, I'm thinking and I'm wondering, how did their lives get to a point where they're accepting $50 to go to a complete stranger's house to pose nude because they need $50 so bad? I wonder where their parents are at, or how their families raised them, or what in their life brought them to this point in their life, which will be the end of their life, because they went with a complete stranger. Even if it's somebody you met at a bar on the first night, and this is what I say to people, I'm like, you can meet a really attractive man at a bar, go home with him, and he can kill your ass. These people that you meet out are complete strangers, and the fact that these people, 17 victims, all got lured back to the same killing layer makes me think, what the f was going on back then? Where so many people were just so easily convinced to go to a strange man's apartment to do God knows what, and then ended up being murdered. It's really sad. It makes you sad. It makes you be like, God, their life must have already been a mess, and then to end in such a terrible, horrible tragedy, horrific way because of a bad decision they made that day, but it seems to be a bad decision they made often, because it seems like these people had it in their routines to do these type of, you know, outlandish actions, like going home with a stranger to make $50 or posing nude for a grown-ass man and you're 13 or 14. It's just, it's mind-blowing. It's really kind of creepy and sad. And then just to have them end in such a terrible way. It's like, God forbid, two out of the 17 victims got away from Jeffrey Dahmer, and hopefully, I pray to God, they learned some type of lesson and their whole lives switched around and their behavior switched around and things got better for them. I don't know. It's just, I just had to take a second to express, like, how is a 22-year-old black man accepting $50, or white man, or the guy was black, but had he been white or Asian or whatever race, how is a 22-year-old man accepting $50 from another man to go pose nude in his house? It's really crazy to me. It makes you wonder what their lives were like before they got murdered. And now it's just like, never know. The next victim was David Thomas. He was 22 years old. He actually was a father of one. He had a child. Dahmer lured him back to his place on September 24th, 1990. He drugged him. And when he was passed out, Dahmer had this recollection and moment where he realized he wasn't sexually attracted to David. But out of fear that he would wake up and be upset that he was drugged, he murdered him anyway, and he kept no remains of the body because he didn't care and was not attracted to this particular victim. The next victim on Dahmer's list was Curtis Straughter. I believe he was between the ages of 17 and 19 years old. Dahmer offered him money for nudes. Again, this guy accepted, went back to his place. He was drugged, strangled, dismembered. Skull was kept, and then the remains of his body were put in a dumpster. And that's another thing that's very questionable to me. When trash day comes up and, you know, these trash things are going to like the trash dump site, isn't that like an easy place for bodies to be discovered? I don't know, it's just so crazy that this guy just like was never caught. I know that a lot of the neighbors used to complain about the smell, and his landlord used to always write him and be like, what is that smell? We're getting severe complaints. And he would say it was his fish tank or his freezer was broken. Again, no one ever thought, oh yeah, maybe he like killed somebody and there's decomposing bodies and acid in his living room. But I'm telling you, if I lived in an apartment building and it smelled of a rotting corpse, like, I'm calling the cops. I'm not gonna wait for my landlord to tell me it's his fish tank. I don't give a if it's his fish tank. Tell him he's evicted and he needs to get the fuck out, because he's disturbing everyone else's peace. I just called 911 at that point. But like, seriously, no one believed in calling the cops back in the day, I believe. Now everyone's calling the cops. I just don't understand. I don't understand it. Dahmer's next victim was Errol Lindsay. I'm probably saying that name incorrect, so I apologize. I believe he was 19 years old. Dahmer, again, lured him to his apartment by offering him money for nudes. He then drugged him, strangled him, had oral sex with the body before dismembering it, and then he kept the skull and got rid of the rest of the body. Tony Hughes was Dahmer's next victim. He was 31 years old. He was actually deaf and mute. Dahmer knew him for a while. They used to communicate with, you know, writing notes on pieces of paper. Dahmer lured him back to his place like he did the rest of his victims. He died on May 24th, 1991. After he lured him back to his apartment, he drugged him, strangled him, performed sex on the body, and actually left the body decomposing in his bedroom for a couple of days before he started the dismemberment process. He kept the skull as a trophy. Okay, I'm 110% going to mess this name up. The next victim is Konorak Synthosophome. I definitely said that incorrectly. I will put the typing, I'll put his name spelled out at the bottom of the screen. It's really difficult. I literally just don't have any idea how to say it. He was only 14 years old. He was the brother of one of the two boys that already previously reported Dahmer for inappropriate behavior. He lured this young 14-year-old boy back to his place. So at this point, he was getting really bored with just strangling, dismembering. He wanted to see if he could turn his victims into zombie or keep them in a zombie-like state so they could still be alive, but he could do whatever he wanted with them.
Then I tried to keep the person alive by inducing a zombie-like state. by injecting first dilute acid solution into their brain or hot water, and it never did completely work.
So with this 14-year-old boy, he drilled a hole in the back of his head and poured acid into the hole. Dahmer actually left to go run errands, and he left the door unlocked, so the 14-year-old boy was, you know, not coherent, not in a right state of mind. And when Dahmer came home, there was other females from his building huddled over this boy, and Dahmer approached, and they're like, we called the cops. So then the cops end up showing up, and Dahmer tells, mind you, this kid looks like a little kid, okay? His picture looks like a child, not a grown man, not a teenager. He looks like a child. Dahmer told these cops that he was having a lover's quarrel with the 14-year-old, and that his real age was actually 19, and he's just super drunk and intoxicated. The cops actually walked Dahmer and the boy back up to Dahmer's apartment. They noticed a weird smell, which was actually the decomposing body he's left laying around his apartment for the past couple of days. And then they proceeded to leave, believing Dahmer's story that this little kid was in fact his lover, and they were just having a fight. When the cops left, he drilled another hole into the little boy's head and poured more acid, which obviously proved to be fatal, and Dahmer realized his zombie-like plan. His plan to keep these people like zombies was never going to work. And then he dismembered it, had sex with the body, and kept his skull. And he stuck his body in a tub of acid so it could decompose.
Conned the police into returning a 14-year-old boy to him after neighbors called 911 upset that the child was in the street naked and bleeding. Dahmer convinced the police that he and the boy were simply having a lover's quarrel.
It was an intoxicated boyfriend of another boyfriend.
Well, how old was this child?
It wasn't a child, it was an adult.
After the police left, Jeffrey Dahmer murdered that boy. Conorak Synthesum phone.
So that's another time where cops failed, not only these people but future victims, because they walked literally a child back up to a pedophile's room, not only a pedophile but a sadistic, evil serial killer, and believed his story, didn't ask for ID, didn't do a wellness check of the apartment. Had they done a wellness check of the apartment, they would have found a decomposing corpse in his bedroom, but instead left this child, who was already probably on his way to death because he has acid in his brain, with a murdering psychopath, and just went back to their, you know, regular, non-productive lives, because clearly they don't know how to do their job. Next victim was Matt Turner. He was killed on June 30th, 1991. He met Dahmer in Chicago. Dahmer somehow convinced him to come back to Milwaukee with him so he could do a photo shoot. Hi, sweetie. Just like always, he drugged him, strangled him, and then dismembered him, but then left the body parts laying around his apartment for a couple of days before he put it in acid. Dahmer's next victim was Jeremiah Weinberger. He was 23 years old, and he was killed on July 7th, 1991. He lured him back to his apartment. He drilled a hole in his head again, but instead of doing acid, he did boiling water. He was left in this weird, like, zombie state for 2 days before Dahmer decided to strangle him to death. He dismembered him like he did everybody else, and then kept certain body parts of his in his freezer. Next victim was Oliver Lacy. He was 23 years old. He was killed on July 15th, 1991. He lured him back to his apartment. Much like everybody else, he drugged him, strangled him, had sex with the dead corpse, and then dismembered his body. He did keep his heart, and he kept it storage in his fridge. His next victim was Joseph Brodhoff, probably saying that wrong. He was 25 years old. He was killed on July 19th, 1991. Again, he was offered money for nudes. Dahmer lured him back to his place. He drugged him, strangled him, and dismembered his body. His head, his complete head, was kept in the freezer. He also kept his torso. Yep, that's right. Kept his torso. So sick. So on July 22nd, 1991, Tracy Edwards jumped in front of a police car with handcuffs around one of his wrists. The cops get out of the car. He's like in a state of shock, and he's like trying to explain that he was at this apartment. This man drugged him. He was going to kill him. So he brings them back to Dahmer's apartment. They go into Dahmer's apartment and they ask him, where's the key to these handcuffs? And Dahmer, hazed and confused and probably drunk and almost blacked out, pointed to his bedroom. And when the cops went into his bedroom, they found the Polaroids of these dismembered bodies, body parts, and basically like an array of erotic, murderous files, creepy files. And so one of the cops yelled to his partner, he said, "Cuff him." So he finally got caught because Tracy Edwards had enough willpower, even though he was drugged to fight back.
To have to pose for pictures.
Yeah.
Did he describe the kind of pictures that you were going to be posing for if you chose to take him up on the offer?
He said nude.
Nude.
Right.
How much had you been offered to do the pose?
$100.
Okay.
Fish tank is here. I'm turning all the way over here.
You turn to your right to look at it?
To look at the fish tank, right.
And when that happens, what happens to you?
All of a sudden, a handcuff and a knife is pulled on me. He told me to lay down, face down, put both of my hands behind my back. Okay, I kind of like laid on my sides for some reason. I guess God told me not to lay flat down or let this person handcuff me, so I didn't.
So you were trying to stop that from happening, but you got down on the floor.
Right.
What did he do?
He kind of laid across me, put his head across my chest at that point.
What was he doing with his head?
Pardon me?
What did it appear to you he was doing with his head? What was he trying to do?
Like he was listening to my heart, because at the point he told me he was going to eat my heart at that point.
He said he was going to eat your heart?
Yes, that's correct. So I reached up, I got up, and then I hit him, and I ran out.
So you hit him?
Right. I just seized the opportunity. I said, well, at least I'm going to die trying. I'm not just going to sit here, you know.
What'd you do, son?
I hit him, and I ran towards the door, and he was right there, tried to grab me, get me back in there.
And what happened?
Then I made it outside.
So he wasn't able to bring you back in?
Bring me back in there, no.
He tried?
He tried.
I couldn't memorize all of this, but I'm just going to go ahead and read this to you. It's what was in the crime scene at Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. A human head and 3 bags of organs, which included 2 hearts, were found in the refrigerator. 3 heads, a torso, and various internal organs were inside a freestanding freezer. Chemicals, formaldehyde, ether, and chloroform, plus 2 skulls, 2 hands, and male genitalia were found in his closet. A filing cabinet that contained 3 painted skulls, a skeleton, a dried scalp, male genitalia, and various photographs of his victims. A box with 2 skulls inside, a 57-gallon vat filled with acid and 3 torsos, victims' identification, bleach used to bleach the skulls and bones, incense sticks. Neighbors often complained to Dahmer about the smell coming from his apartment. Tools like a claw hammer, handsaw, 3/8 drill, 1/16 drill, and drill bits, a hypodermic needle, various videos, some pornographic, blood-soaked mattress and blood splatters all over the walls, and a King James Bible. He got charged with 17 counts of murder. It got reduced to 15 counts of murder. He was absolutely found guilty of all 15. I don't know why he wasn't charged with all 17. I really didn't do my homework on that. He stopped caring about what was going to happen to him. He started, like, you know, going to church and reading the Bible, and he said, like, he knew what he did was wrong, and whatever happens to him, and he deserves whatever, you know, punishment he gets. So they put him in the general public of the jail. We all know, killed some children. Child killers don't really do well in jail, so when they put him in the GP, it wasn't too long until somebody took his ass out, because Jeffrey Dahmer, my friends, got murdered. He got killed. So this guy, Christopher Scarver, he was schizophrenic and he was in jail for first-degree murder. He actually had a job. He was promised a job at one point, and he never got offered the job, so he rolled up to the job site and shot the guy that didn't offer him the job right in the head. And so he said that Dahmer used to recreate the way he dismembered and killed bodies with, like, ketchup and food in prison, and he had just about enough of it. So when him and one other inmate, I believe his name was Jesse Andrews, were on work at the gym, the prison gym, he rolled up and he took, which is crazy how the world is full circle, he took a dumbbell and bashed Dahmer's head in with it. And although Dahmer was rushed to the hospital, he was pronounced dead later on while he was there. And then the other person was also beaten to death by Scarver. And he just said some people feel guilty for what they did, and he had no remorse, so I don't care about killing him. So that's how Dahmer was taken out, which is kind of crazy because that's exactly how he took out his first victim, with a dumbbell. Beat his head in with it. And it was really frustrating because when I was watching like these documentaries and stuff on Dahmer on YouTube and wherever I could find them, people were saying that he didn't deserve to die in such a terrible way, and the Dahmer that they talked to and had conversations with wasn't a terrible human being. I'm sorry, you he is a terrible human being. He's an evil, sadistic human being. I don't care if he gave you a proper conversation because he can't murder you because he's behind bars. He's an evil piece of psychopath, and you're defending him, which makes me think, are you sadistic too? Are you part of a Dahmer fan club and perform some sadistic acts, and Dahmer taught you how to get away with it? Because the fact that some people are even in this documentary defending him is beyond me. But yeah, that wraps up the gloomy, and it's starting to get dark in here, and I'm just like, I want to wrap this up. I want to cuddle my dog, eat some food, and not think about Jeffrey Dahmer ever again in my life. But thank you, Jeffrey Dahmer, for making me, you know, you are the serial killer look, and every time I think of a serial killer, I think of his face. So thanks for that, Jeffrey Dahmer. F you, Jeffrey Dahmer. Rest in hell, Jeffrey Dahmer. Anyways, if you like these true crime videos, I'm going to repeat one more time. Please do not comment what cases you want me to cover. Email me. I cannot keep up with the comment section. I do read emails, and I will go through whatever cases are sent to me whenever I can. I will be posting every Wednesday for true crime and wine. And that's it. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. Hit that subscribe button. But also hit the bell, because if you don't hit the bell, you will not get notifications. Follow me on Instagram, XXODanielle. Come here, baby. Swallow It Podcast for my podcast, The Official Victor Twins for me and Gabby's joint page, and Little Caesar the Frenchie for me and Caesar's joint page. Joint page, his page. I just run it. Come here, Caesar. Come here, baby. Oh, come here, my little baby. Oh, say hello. Oh, he's so cute, my little prince. My little prince. I love you, sweetheart. My little baby. I love you so much. Yeah, that's it. I love you guys to the moon and back. Hug your loved ones. Pay attention to the warning signs. Do not go to a stranger's house ever. Not for money, not for sex, not for anything. If you are in a position in your life where that is what you are doing, I promise you, figure out a way to get past it. Get help. Ask for help. Don't be ashamed to ask for help. But the world is a scary place, and there are scary people in it. So pay attention, be aware, keep your eyes open and peeled, because there are sick fucks like Jeffrey Dahmer out there. There are people that probably study Jeffrey Dahmer, try to learn, you know, how to not get caught. There are people out there just like him. I promise you that. So be safe, be smart, pay attention. Okay? Pay attention. Also, I was thinking when I was like Googling pictures and like videos for like all these true crime cases, if anyone ever looked at my phone, like they probably like, is this a psychopath? Because like my search history is like all these psychopaths and like their killings and their victims. I'm like, no, I swear, I'm just doing true crime on my YouTube channel. Oh, that's it. Oh. Anyways, I love you guys. Till next time. Bye.